Welcome to Postgame Takeaways with Inside ND Sports. I'm Tyler James from a hotel in Louisville. He's the one and only Eric Hansen. We cover Notre Dame football, recruiting, and more for InsideNDSports.com on the Rivals Network. And we're here to share postgame takeaways from Notre Dame's 33-20 loss at Louisville. Eric, that wasn't very pretty for the Irish. What was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway was that I think this is the kind of game people typically overreact to, and they had every right to, because I think this was worse than just getting upset by the number 25 team in the country. I think this cut deeper into the challenges that Marcus Freeman has as a second-year coach, and I don't think there's easy answers to remedy it.
Yeah, it sort of felt like the culmination of all the issues that have been bubbling at the surface with this Notre Dame football team. Hasn't necessarily cost Notre Dame in the loss column, except for the Ohio State game prior to tonight, but it certainly haunted Notre Dame tonight. Didn't seem to be able to do much of anything offensively, and I think that, to me, is the story of the game, is just how impotent Notre Dame's offense was. Third downs, they were deficient. 3 of 13 overall, 0 of 3 on 3rd and 3 or less. And that doesn't even count a Blake Fisher false start on a 3rd and 1. The 3 plays that they ran were a fumble, a negative Audric Estime run, and a negative Jabron Payne run. So I could speak more about all the other ways the offense went wrong, but I want to throw it to you, Eric. What was the most disappointing part of the offensive performance from your perspective?
That Notre Dame had no counterpunch. I mean, it's one thing. Well, there's many things, but and it also cuts to the core of what Marcus Freeman wants and envisions, and talks about his program being an offensive line, defensive line driven program, a program that looks to improve no matter what the bottom line was the week before. They regressed. They got owned on the line of scrimmage by a defense and an offensive line that really isn't known for doing that this year. I mean, they've had spots and spurts, but they haven't been able to dominate somebody on the offensive line like that. I mean, 185 yards to 44 yards rushing, 5 sacks, forced them into 5 turnovers. And the thing about it is, Tyler, they're going to get that formula again until they work their way out of this. It's like a hitter that came up from AAA that suddenly can't hit a curveball. Guess what he's going to see until he hits the curveball? The curveball.
Yeah, the offensive line, I think that was easily the worst game, and I think Duke might have been the worst game prior to this Louisville performance. Like you mentioned, 5 sacks allowed. They even tried to rotate in the interior. I don't know what the snap counts were, and I want to take a closer look at how each of those guys performed, but it certainly didn't seem to be an answer. I first honestly noticed that Billy Strouth was in the game when he gets run over on the way to a sack on a 3rd down protection, and Andrew Kristofic was playing center. Billy Strouth played both the different guard spots, so they were moving him around in replacing Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler. Even Joe Alt got ran over for a sack. That's something you never see. You mentioned
actually never has it happened.
Yeah, it's
that's his first career sack he's given up in college.
Yeah, it's I was just like, what in the world just happened there? Like I like watched it happen live. I just couldn't believe my eyes. You mentioned the rushing yardage. 44 yards is the fewest Notre Dame has had since the Fiesta Bowl to end the 2021 season in Marcus Freeman's first game as head coach. And at least in that game, Notre Dame's offense was capable of scoring, whereas tonight they went almost 39 minutes before someone who was on scholarship to play football at Notre Dame scored a touchdown with Jordan Faison, the walk-on football player, scholarship lacrosse player, getting his scholarship officially transferred over to the football team by making an appearance and getting a touchdown in his first career game.
And a 3rd down conversion.
Yeah, so not a good sign for Notre Dame's receiving room. It just seems like there's no confidence at wide receiver, whether it's in Sam Hartman and the guys he's throwing to or the guys themselves, the offensive play calling that's setting up those wide receivers. The returns of Jaden Thomas and Jaden Greathouse didn't do much of anything. Thomas had 2 catches for 33 yards. Greathouse didn't have any catches. It seemed like maybe Greathouse was still limited by his hamstring because he wasn't even playing as regularly as he normally would. So just that is Notre Dame's problem. There's no one besides Mitchell Evans at tight end is really intimidating opposing defenses in terms of being a pass catcher right now.
Well, opposing defensive coordinators now Duke did it with Notre Dame down 2 receivers. But Louisville was able to do it with those guys back, plus Eli Reardon, plus Jordan Faison, and they basically treated Notre Dame as if Drew Pine were playing quarterback, and they easily got away with it. And again, to me, that's on Jared Parker to come up with the plays and come up with the execution and the coaching, and Marcus Freeman too, to make them pay for that. Mm-hmm. And when you were talking about the offensive line rotation, look, I have no issue with Billy Schrauth getting a start, especially after the last game, or Andrew Kostofik getting a start at center. But the rotation, when you're trying to foster cohesiveness in that offensive line against a defensive front that's given you problems, that seems like the worst way to do that. So I had massive issues with that. And of course, my phone blows up like I'm going to be able to answer these questions in mid-game. I will only do it for the Insider Lounge.
That's right. Yeah, I don't. Joe Alt said that they practiced during the week for that, so that was something they wanted to do. And Marcus Freeman said the same.
But that doesn't make it a good idea,
right? Yeah, I know. And so, like, I don't know what the rhyme or reason of it was, and like would have lasted
that's like
longer.
Practicing driving over nails in your driveway. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I know what a flat tire feels like. I practiced it.
I guess Billy Schrauth is the flat tire in this instance, but
I am high on Billy Schrauth, but I just think shuffling people in and out is not the way you build continuity in an offensive line. Just let him have the start and let him play.
Yeah,
it was like Twitter was coaching. I mean, that's something that Twitter would suggest, or X, or whatever it's called these days.
You mentioned it's on Jared Parker to come up with some schemes to get some guys open, and it was a reminder of that penalties are still a problem for Notre Dame. Notre Dame only had 3 penalties for 35 yards, but 2 of them were massive. And you could argue 3 of them were huge because the one that I mentioned earlier was Blake Fisher's false start, which Notre Dame ended up extending the drive because Louisville ended up jumping off sides on a punt return, or lining up off sides on a punt return. But the other one was a Blake Fisher face mask penalty on what was a nice play call. It was like a fake wide receiver screen that set up a deep downfield pass to Mitchell Evans, and it seemed like maybe Louisville was keying on Mitchell Evans after he caught his first pass because Notre Dame struggled to get the ball back to him after that for a while. And so it was like, oh, there's a nice play, and then all of a sudden it's wiped out by a penalty, and then obviously the other penalty was on a 3rd down defensive stop where Maris Leofau got called for a face mask as well, and that was sort of the backbreaker at the end of the game that really made it clear that Notre Dame wasn't going to be able to come back in this one.
Well, what did you think about the 4th and 11? I mean, to me, I was saying to myself, of course, I don't have any witnesses, but I was saying to myself, that's a bad call even if he gets it. That's a bad call. That's a bad call. And it didn't backfire on men as much as it could have. Mm-hmm. But I just thought if that's what the analytics are telling Marcus Freeman, he needs to use more common sense in that situation than pure analytics.
Yeah, I didn't love it. I mean, I didn't have a lot of confidence at that point in the game in Notre Dame's defense getting a stop, which they ended up doing immediately following that. I mean, they forced a 3-and-out, which ended up resulting in a field goal because Louisville didn't have to drive to get a field goal. But I had less confidence in Notre Dame being able to get an 11-yard completion, and that's something that they struggled to do throughout the game. And to put Notre Dame's offense in that position where it's obviously a pass, the playbook seems pretty limited in what Notre Dame's been able to do. It's just not a winning solution or a winning scenario for Notre Dame's offense right now, the way the game was going. So I understand Marcus Freeman was worried about, okay, you're going to lose time off the clock and it's still going to be a 2-possession game. But a 2-possession game where it's 11 points and 14 points matters because Notre Dame could score, get a 2-point conversion, and get a field goal. That seems way more feasible than scoring 2 touchdowns when you'd only scored 1 all night long to that point. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it made a difference in the game because I think at that point it was probably a lost cause regardless. But it almost seemed like a little bit of well, we're not going to win this anyways. Why not go out trying to do this? And that's not a good way to be trying to finish out a game.
Agreed. Again, if they can't protect, I almost said Marcus, Sam Hartman, they may need to protect Marcus on the sideline. If they can't protect Sam Hartman against a team that was 84th in the country in sacks, what are they going to do when they play the number 6 country in sacks next week and number 1 in tackles for loss? Now, USC's got defensive issues, but getting after the quarterback is not one of them. They have absolutely no problem at doing that. I mean, USC gave up over 500 yards to Arizona's offense with a backup quarterback tonight.
Right.
I mean, that's stunning. If Notre Dame struggles against that defense next week
at home,
then Jared Parker is over his head. To me.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair criticism because that's not a good defense. We didn't think Louisville was that great of a defense, but Louisville looked like a great defense tonight with the way Notre Dame's offense was performing. So Notre Dame's going to need better there. We didn't talk much about Notre Dame's defense. I thought they did okay. I mean, they were put into a lot of bad positions. I think they have to certainly be better against the run. Jawar Jordan had 21 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns for 6.8 yards per carry. The dam sort of broke for Notre Dame's defense in the second half as it related to that. So he certainly needs to do better. But I mean, Notre Dame lost by 13 points against a team that's passed for 145 yards. Those are just numbers that aren't going to be a winning recipe for Notre Dame, and they're not don't have a lot of time to rebound. You got to get back at it and go against your rival USC, an undefeated team coming in with its own issues, but it has managed to avoid being upset so far, and we'll see if Notre Dame can somehow turn around to provide a bright moment in what's been a bit of a bleak time as of late for Notre Dame, particularly for its offense. All right, that'll do it for our postgame takeaways. Make sure you check out the rest of our postgame coverage on InsideNDSports.com. If you're not a subscriber to the site, you can use the promo code we have going right now, NDYT, to sign up for a 30-day free trial. Look for the link in the video description below, and we will see you back here Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern for Football Never Sleeps.